yesterday. I want to just invite us to start. Many of us are spending more time than we'd like in front of screens right now. Some of us are able to spend more time outside because we're not working. Some of us bring a variety of different things to this moment. So I want to just invite us to start by all taking 3 deep breaths together, and then I'll share a little affirmation with all of you. So let's breathe in together. And as you do this, I invite you to hear the sounds around you, feel the earth waking up, feel connected and grounded down through your feet into the soil. In and out. And we'll do one more. And as we do this, I invite you to hold in love and prayer all of those gathered here today and all of those across the globe who are in harm's way right now, struggling, and also dreaming and building new ways forward. One last breath in and out. And I offer you these words. You are loved beyond belief. You are enough. You are precious. Your work and your life matter. And you are not alone. You are part of a we, a great cloud of witnesses, living and dead, who have insisted that this beautiful broken world of ours is a blessing, worthy of both deep gratitude and fierce protection. Our ancestors and our descendants are beckoning us, compelling us onward toward greater connection, greater compassion, greater commitment to one another and to the earth. Together, we are resilient and resourceful enough to say yes to that call, to make it our life's work in 1,000 different ways, some of which we never predicted, knowing that we can do no other than to bind ourselves more tightly together, to throw ourselves into the holy work of showing up again and again, to be part of building that world of which we dream, but which we have not yet seen. Welcome, beloveds.
Thank you so much, Ashley. So I will quickly paste the call link again for those who'd like to follow along with the notes. You'll have to copy and paste this into your browser. And then you can also just listen in and then see the notes later for those who don't really need it. So the way we've structured this call, and just to give a little background, this is inspired by our Create Climate Justice campaign to build unity for climate justice across the UU faith. And we are following an order of getting updates from various organizations across the denomination working on this. And the call is structured to begin with along the 3 priorities for the Create Climate Justice initiative. And those are to strengthen UU communications and mutual support networks for climate justice, to act in solidarity with Indigenous frontline communities, and to catalyze a just transition to an ecological civilization through our partnerships and civic engagement. So you'll hear many, many different ways that UUs will be and are moving on these things together. And then towards the end of the call, we'll have an open dialogue really focused on reflection of where we've been, looking at a statement that was made already 14 years ago in 2006. So how we've done over, looking back where we were then, how it's gone in the years in between, where we are now, and where we feel we need to go from here. So hopefully we'll have enough time for a rich dialogue at the end. To get us started, we're beginning with our Strengthen UU Communications and Mutual Support Networks priority. So some of the things in here, many things across the board of the conversation today fit within that subject. And these are just a few to kick us off. So Reverend Karen Brammer, if you would begin with an update, a call to action from the UUA Green Sanctuary Program.
So good to be with everyone. Many, many blessings for your health and well-being. Green Sanctuary is currently working with about 90 congregations who are, to some degree, working with the program on the different areas of climate justice and environmental sustainability and justice. The large and dedicated volunteer team for the Green Sanctuary Advisory Board and Review Team are working, we have been working for the last year on creating an upgrade of the program that would use the Green Sanctuary platform to call all congregations into responding to climate urgency, and to do so in a way that is informed, grounded in our faith, resourcing everyone who needs resourcing, and also in right relation, in collaboration with frontline communities. And so we're actively doing that work. We hope to roll out some of that work during the General Assembly Cyber event. And also we'll be following through with pieces of it over time. If your congregation or you are interested in taking a look at the program and see what it means, let me know. Just I'll put my email address in here on the side. And we'd be happy to fill you in and also ask for your input. Think that's probably it at the moment. Thank you all. Oh, and by the way, you don't have to get accreditation. This climate urgency piece is not designed for a congregation to get accreditation, et cetera. It is a program to move. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Next, we have Amelia Diehl with the UU Young Adults for Climate Justice.
Hey everyone, really good to be with you all. I put most of the info in the notes, but just to chime in really quickly, would be great to just spread the word to other young adults that you might know, either in your congregation or community, and I added the contact form in the notes if you just want to send that off to anyone you might know. And we're also currently working on learning more about the Green New Deal and also the Red Deal, an indigenous-led call for decolonization and reparations. And as we sort of learn more about engaging with Green New Deal and this just transition work. So just sort of look out for more resources around that and engagement with the young adults, and also creating a zine on theologies of place, and put the link in the notes as well for that, and look out for more info. Thanks all for being here.
Thank you, Amelia. So next I have just a quick invitation for those who aren't familiar with it. We have a web platform called createclimatejustice.net, and this includes a catalog of resources, of events, and a member directory of UUs working towards climate justice. So this was something that was created in order to really democratize communication and resource sharing among UUs doing this work together. So we have a site tour and Q&A with our outreach specialist, Diane Brooks, on May 12th, which is a Tuesday at 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern. And the link to join that is right there in the chat, or not in the chat, it's in the call notes document. So you'll wanna put that in your calendar, and the link to join is right there. And I've also put the link to the mailing list for Create Climate Justice, which is it's curated by myself and the UUA organizing strategy team. So that's another way to get just regular communications about what's going on with these 3 priorities for the Create Climate Justice Initiative. And then lastly, the link there is a website on ministryforearth.org, which has tips to get started on the website and a 10-minute video tour for you to get a quick download about how the site works and all of its various features. And this is a place where you can create groups for your congregation, for your state, for a various campaign you're working on. It's organized by groups, and then you post events and resources within the group pages. So I hope you'll consider joining that platform if you haven't already, or if you are on it but you're not really using it very well yet, join the intro tour or watch that 10-minute video about how to utilize the features of the platform. We are constantly evolving the features of it. We're working with Green Sanctuary to integrate a report feature so that congregations can give updates to how they're moving on the Green Sanctuary program or other things. And, you know, there's ways to give us feedback if you have feedback about ideas for making the site better. It's a custom build. We built it ourselves for this movement, and we would love to know how it's working for you and if there's anything you think we should add. So next, for resources, I wanted to pass back to Amelia and to Reverend Stevie Carmody around the United Nations Spring Seminar that just happened and the great resources that have come out of that.
Yeah, so I'll just pop in here. So there's a link to the write-up that includes some recordings from the seminar. So this was the yearly spring seminar put on by the United Nations office, or office at the UN, I forget what it is, that focused on climate justice. And so the keynote conversation between youth climate strikers was recorded up on YouTube, and then the theme panel with different frontline organizers was also included. Stevie, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, it was a wonderful event, intergenerational, 150 attendees or so, youth, young adults, elders, and a real chance to connect with one another and to resource share and to really focus on the right things around climate justice. There are a few resources. I encourage you to read Amelia's summary. I think it was really well done in terms of summary, and it has all the links, and that summary is in our meeting notes. In addition, as we're planning more online events, take a look at the seminar website. It was sort of the landing page, or sort of like the program book for this online event, and it made it really easy to sort of navigate between the different events. And an invitation to you all to spread in your networks that the UU at the United Nations office is already looking for volunteers for next spring seminar, which I think they're doing some thinking around focusing in on climate justice at a different angle, but keeping that continuity of theme for next year because of the urgency of this. So if you want to encourage the youth and adults in your lives to consider volunteering for it, I just went through the process of being the dean, and it was a pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you, Stevie, and thank you, Amelia. Okay, so our next section of our agenda is focused on solidarity with Indigenous frontline communities. And I should also say we're focused first on calls to action, then on updates and invitations, and lastly on resources. So each of these sections has those three areas to it. So to get us started, I want to invite Reverend Clyde Grubbs and Ann Gilmore, who both are leaders on a council with President Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, and really looking at the Plymouth landing and 400th anniversary and remembrance of that, and how we as a faith want to recognize and move into that for our General Assembly and beyond. And so they have some updates for us. And I don't see, Anne, if you're on here, would you put a note in the chat, and then Clyde, would you get us started? There you are. Okay.
Unmute. There you go. Hello, I'm Clyde Grubbs. How are you? Hello to everyone. I'm not popping up big, so I'm still seeing Allie. The Remembrance Committee is basically organized around the program for General Assembly 2020, and 2020 General Assembly was to look at the question of the 400th anniversary of the landing of the Mayflower, which is had a tremendous impact. Unitarian and Universalist churches quite often looked at their history back to that from an indigenous point of view was the Puritan invasion. So we're looking at that thematically during the General Assembly. There's Ann. How you doing, Ann?
Good to see you, Clyde.
And had developed programs, worship services, workshops, action points So those things are now, we're now in a concentrated effort to try to work all of that material into a General Assembly that's virtual. So there's all sorts of interesting challenges to that, because when you go to virtual, you also come up against the fact that people, Unitarian Universalists, are in different time zones. So you're going to have to try to create the programs. So you'll be, most of that will be revealed very soon, what the plans are and how they're shaping up. But let's go back to the 400th anniversary of the landing of the Mayflower, because it's where Anne's going to come in a minute. The original people were the Wampanoag people, the Wampanoag Confederation, of a group of villages, which were southeastern Massachusetts and Rhode Island. The Narragansett Confederation, the Massachusetts Confederation, and the Nipmuc people, who were the people of the fresh water, Nipmuc. And so those are the people more interior. And all of those people were severely impacted by European-born diseases and conquest, and many of them were enslaved. So those people are involved in this discussion, plus indigenous people from across the United States and North America, South America, all to talk about colonialism, which ties into this forum, this question of an ecological fight back of Unitarian Universalists, in that colonialism is essentially an extractive enterprise. It extracts people, it extracts resources, it tears up the land. Plymouth Plantation introduced a kind of agriculture that destroyed the soils and things like that. So we're going to be, those things will be explored. And right now, I think for the purposes of the calls to justice that we're entering into, the Wampanoag people are asking for support, and Anne's going to talk about that right now.
Thank you, Clyde, and thank you for the opportunity to be on this call. The Mashpee Wampanoags have been defending and protecting their homelands for 400 years of colonization. Up until the mid-1970s, they had use of basically 80% of their native lands, though not legal ownership of that much. And there was a court case in the 70s, which I was a lawyer on a legal team defending the tribe in their quest for the return of their ancestral land. And they were never able to present that claim in court because the judge first required that they prove they were a tribe within the meaning of federal law. And there was a 40-day hearing with perhaps one of the most racist trials that I've ever been aware of. And the judge basically found that they could be a tribe for any purpose under law except for the recovery of their land. So then began a 30-year process where they petitioned the Bureau of Indian Affairs for federal recognition, and they had to keep submitting documentation over and over again. And then they realized you had to hire a lobbyist to get the Bureau of Indian Affairs to hear your case. So they did that. Anyway, after 30 years, they got their federal recognition with a note that they were one of the most well-documented tribes in US history. And then under the Obama administration, as happens with federally recognized tribes, lands were taken into trust, which means now the federal government is entrusted with the protection of those lands. They can't be taxed, they can't be taken. The tribe can operate in a sovereign way on those lands. So lots of projects began. There's a housing project for elders and low-income people that's in process now. There's a language immersion school. The language was basically brought back from the dead in the 21st century. And ground was broken for a casino development in Taunton. There was a lawsuit by some residents of Taunton that were funded by a rival casino developer. And a federal judge up here in Massachusetts said that it didn't appear that the Bureau of Indian Affairs had correctly taken their lands into trust, that they didn't seem to qualify under the provision of law that they had chosen. So it was sent back to the Bureau of Indian Affairs to make a determination under another section of the law. And 1 hour before the hearing on that determination, the Bureau got word from the White House to stand down and not support the tribe anymore. Now, this is unprecedented. Once the tribe is federally recognized, the US government is bound to protect and represent them. So by their saying we no longer are going to be involved in this, they were basically abandoning this whole process that took many, many years. So the tribe then filed a lawsuit in Washington, D.C., saying the government cannot abandon a decision that's been made on the whim of the executive, of the president. So that lawsuit is still pending. And on March 27th, in the beginning of this pandemic, the Mashpee leaders received a call from the Bureau of Indian Affairs. They thought it was to notify them of what supplies they would be getting to help with fighting the pandemic, which all the federally recognized tribes are receiving, supposedly. And instead of an offer for help, they were informed in a very strange way, with no details provided, that their reservation was being disestablished and their lands taken out of trust. And that this was coming directly from the Secretary of the Interior. So this has really just sent shockwaves through Mashpee. I mean, at this point, the land that they have in trust, the remains of, the whole town of Mashpee, which they had occupancy of as late as, the mid-1970s, is now down to 321 acres. And if this land is taken out of trust, it will be subject to taxation. It will be subject to being taken for debt, which the tribe is in a lot of debt. It will throw into question the housing program. There's units are almost ready to be completed and people are scheduled to be moving in. It will threaten the maintenance of the language immersion school that the tribe can run in a sovereign way and make decisions about. Anyway, all this enormous work in progress that's happened in the 21st century is just completely under threat now. And the loss of the last few acres of homeland after 400 years is it's almost unbearable for people to think about. It's causing a lot of harm. And I've been so happy, and so has the tribe, with the response of the Unitarian Universalist Association. The UUA was the first, ally to really come out very strongly and swiftly in condemnation of this action, and has put out a call to action to all Unitarians and congregations to take certain actions in support of the Mashpee Wampanoag. And basically those can be found in the notes, but they involve signing a petition, contacting senators to, there's legislation that would solve this, that would counteract this move on the part of the executive, and it would basically confirm the Mashpee reservation lands. It's a bill that despite Trump's very, virulent opposition to it and threats made to Republicans, nonetheless, a lot of Republicans voted for it. And now it's in the Senate, but it's just being held up in the Committee on Indian Affairs. So the calls are being urged to the Senator, I think it's Dan Hoven, who's the head of that committee, to get it out of committee. Calls and emails to the Secretary of the Interior expressing outrage at this action of disestablishing the tribe's reservation are asked for. And then a more recent call to action is to ask people to light sacred fires or candles on May 3rd, this coming Sunday, in support and protection and prayer for the Mashpee homelands. And then asking people to post photos of those fires with statements of support on social media. So again, I just want to say that it's just been really reaffirming I feel like there's been a sea change in the UUA in the last few years in terms of support for Indigenous peoples. And I also want to thank Reverend Susan Frederick Gray for her leadership. And I want to thank Reverend Clyde Grubbs for his leadership. I mean, I think just been working nonstop on getting Indigenous voices to be lifted and centered at the upcoming GA. And all the other people who have been on the calls to plan for the GA, who have been so supportive and are so active in support of Indigenous peoples.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you so much. So next we have Reverend Karen Van Fossan to speak with us about water protector prisoner support.
It's an honor to be with you and see some of you again. I have a brief update for you with a call to action to follow very soon. I just came off of a call about the call to action. So I have some bit to share about that. Can I briefly share my screen, Allie?
You should be, yes, as a co-host, I'm pretty sure you can.
Let's see.
Do you see it in the bar there at the bottom?
Yes. Let's see. Many, probably all of you, were involved in prayer and other forms of solidarity in person or at a distance with the water protector movement at Standing Rock. And at that time, I was serving as minister at our UU congregation closest to Standing Rock in Bismarck, North Dakota. And since that time, I continue to serve as part of the No DAPL Political Prisoner Support Committee. And I'm just showing you images right now of 5 political prisoners from the No DAPL movement. And Rattler in particular, who you can see there, Rattler and Red Fawn are currently incarcerated. Dion, James, who goes by Angry Bird, and Little Feather are out. But Rattler and Red Fawn are incarcerated, and Rattler has asked that we as UUs take up a campaign to pressure the BOP, the Bureau of Prisons, both to do what it says it will do and to do more in terms of really decarcerating people from prison and improving conditions so that they're more humane for those who remain. So Love Resists, thankfully, is going to take up the campaign. You'll be getting information about that most immediately. And there will be opportunities to to urge the BOP, the Bureau of Prisons, to do two things, which is to release large numbers of people from federal prisons, and also to improve conditions for those who remain. You probably know that many Indigenous people, because of various jurisdictional issues, end up in federal prisons and are overrepresented in the prison system in general. And a group of us who are loved ones of Rattler and other Indigenous people imprisoned have come together to urge these two actions on the part of Bureau of Prisons, and thankfully, gratefully, Love Resists will be carrying that campaign forward, and UU Ministry for Earth, I believe, will be amplifying that, which should give you an opportunity to participate. And we do that in a spirit of love and are grateful for your participation in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Next, I want to lift up a call to support COVID-19 relief for the Navajo and Dene people. And their communities have been incredibly hard hit by the COVID pandemic at rates, some of the worst in the country. And so this link by Water Protector Legal Collective gives you just a quick list of people on the ground in their reservations and communities getting support out there. So if you have extra income that you could donate some, this is like an urgent relief need for the Navajo and Dene nations that are struggling with COVID-19. And I think I'll invite Mary Wilson at this point. If you have anything you want to add about what I just said, and then also if you want to speak on the next item on our agenda, which is a update and invitation from the International Initiative for Transformative Collaboration, I'd welcome you to speak to both of those things.
Thanks, Allie. Good morning, everyone, or noon is where I am. I don't have too much to add regarding the link for COVID relief, except that just to share. So I'm joining from Bismarck, North Dakota, adjacent to Standing Rock Reservation, and my family is connected to Lakota country here, and just there are few cases at this point, thankfully, in the community. Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe, I think, just today announced their first case of COVID, and there's one in Standing Rock, or one or two that have been reported, and a few more at Pine Ridge. But the fear of knowing sort of the constraints on housing, limited housing, there are people who are getting their water utilities shut off, continue to get their utilities shut off even though they can't pay during this time. There's just, it could be disastrous, and it is disastrous in Dene country. And so I'm just sharing that sort of to humanize what's happening. So that's what I have to say about that. As far as the International Initiative for Transformative Collaboration is a group that I've been part of, and particularly coming out of the resistance camps at Standing Rock, the Oceti-Chacoin camp, and looking at creating spaces, physical spaces on the ground where it's possible to gather and organize together and be together, and sort of look at alternative ways doing things, and being part of this group has been really really meaningful and opening to a lot of connections with people, a lot of whom were on this call. And so we're continuing to maintain those relationships and hope to and expand them with a program at GA, and then annually we've been meeting in the Black Hills, and so hope to again in September, although whether that's going to be a physical meeting is not clear at this point yet. But, so I don't have a lot of updates about that, just wanting to it's nice to be on this call and see people's faces and extend that invitation. And I believe Lynnda is on as well. And Lynnda, if you have anything you'd like to add, please do.
Hello, thank you all for being here. And thank you for opening your hearts to the situations that are around us all. I would like to, and I'm president of INITC, if you're wondering why I'm talking. I'm a UU minister who lives in Peoria, Illinois. And the thing about INITC that I hope you all know is that what we're striving for is to offer ways of having people being able to talk with each other instead of going to solution, which very often ends up in difficulty when everyone already has their mind made up. But to explore a process where we can all make agreements, come together, and determine what it is that we want to do. Where this all leads without having some preconceived notions. And so we have had opportunities to offer invitations to people to come together and try to understand each other and what we each have to offer, instead of just pointing a direction to a goal. I'd like to add that First Nations people have been doing the heavy lifting for all of us for a long time. They've been in the forefront of making the sacrifices, of facing the authorities and the guns. They've been doing that for all of us. And I hear of a couple of things that are going well right now. And I'm glad to hear those things from Anne and from Clyde. My concern is that we might think that's enough. In my history of working with UUs, I find we often want to understand the pain of something. And we think that if we feel the pain, that's enough, and it isn't. I think we have to go beyond being what we currently call ourselves, allies. We have to be the interrupters of the systems. We cannot continue to be safe, to be in our safe places. And so in the future, I hope these kinds of meetings will continue, that we will come together, that we will open our minds, our hearts. Sometimes it's easier to open a wallet, but we really need people to be participants in the actions.
Thank you, Lynn.
Okay, off the soapbox.
So great to be with you, and thank you for sharing your heart and your words with us, Lynnda and Mary too.
Thank you.
So next on the agenda is an update and an invitation about the film screening campaign for The Condor and the Eagle. And for those who don't know, this is a documentary film screening that the UU Ministry for Earth is blessed to have come into relationship with, and we're an executive producer of this film thanks to donations through a Faithify campaign a couple years ago. So some of you here might be also part of that executive producing of this fantastic film. So it features Indigenous frontline stories across North and South America, or Turtle Island. And we've had quite a few film screenings. We've had quite a few technical difficulties with those film screenings. And we are continuously working out the kinks in the technology to improve the experience of it. And so what I want to share with you all is the new landing page for the film screenings for the rest of the year. And so we initially, of course, some of you here were involved in trying to bring in-person screenings to your community. Of course, that's no longer possible right now. And so we're doing virtual screenings, and there's dozens and dozens of partners who would like to do this. So to make it more manageable, what Ministry for Earth is doing is hosting 2 screenings consistently on the first Friday of every month and the third Thursday of every month. And we're inviting congregational climate or environmental justice teams, or your whole congregation, or any partners you have, to join as co-hosts for these screenings, and to invite your congregation and your community partners to join the screening together and then have a discussion after the film together. And so, so far we've done this with UU Justice Arizona. We have one scheduled with the Texas UU Justice Ministry on May 15th. And so those 2 consistent times every month, you know, I'm really opening that invitation to all congregations and UU community organizations to be partners. And we are also able to schedule a screening at a unique time. You know, if you have a climate justice convergence in your state, for example, where you wanted to screen the film, you can also fill out the screening form on that webpage I just linked, uumfe.org/condor-eagle. And that's where you can also look for the days and the times of the screening. You'll see the upcoming screenings about the film, and then the third section on that page is to host a screening. That form has all the screening times and dates for the rest of the year listed in it. So go ahead and give it a look, and then once your team or congregation can say yes, please fill out that form as soon as possible. And I really look forward to adapting to our virtual ministries for these times, and still continuing to come together and deepen our understanding and our movement. I think another element here is this is raising funds for us to support all the good work that's already been lifted up, our Indigenous frontline solidarity work under the Create Climate Justice Initiative. This film screening is every single screening we have, there's a suggested donation of $10 to $50, $10 to $100, you know, with anyone allowed to come. And those funds are being split between the Film Impact Campaign, the people in the film and the work they're doing, this campaign, UU Indigenous Solidarity work, and then also we can split the plate with local climate justice frontline partners that you have. So if you're in a relationship at your congregation with a local organization that does climate justice work that represents a frontline community, this is also a way that you can show up for them by splitting the plate at one of these film screenings. So that is my update about that. And next I want to welcome Maria De La Rosa with UUSC and Lori Simmons, who is a community organizer for Carrizo Come Crudo Solidarity in Texas.
Great. Hi, everyone. So we just want to share a little bit about the work that we're doing in supporting the Carrizo Come Crudo tribe in Texas. So Lori, do you just want to share a little bit about the tribe and the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I can. So we are in Floresville, Texas, which is really close to San Antonio. The tribe is a native tribe that predates first contact. They are not recognized state or federal. They are working on that. We do all frontline in Texas. We are getting ready to host a tribunal where we are going to be talking about a piece of land that's 625 acres called Garcia Pasture. It's in Brownsville, and they are proposed to put an LNG site on top of it. It is an old Carrizo village site. It is a Texas Historical Registered Landmark, and that will be happening on May 22nd, 23rd, and then we'll have a live online feature the 24th with Juan. We are doing COVID, so we are feeding elders and taking care of elders and supporting the community and the tribal members in the immediate area, as well as sending care packages out to the tribal members across the state that we can't visit with right now because we are locked down. I think that's it. Anybody got any questions, or did I miss anything?
Oh, it's great, Lori. Thank you. Anna, do you have anything to add?
Nope. Just thank you so much for all the ways you hold this work, Allie.
Thank you. Okay, let me check to see Erin or Vynda with the Canadian Unitarian Council. I don't know that they were able to make it on. For those who didn't notice, we had more people try to call in than we had space for on this line. So next time we will use the UUA line with 500 people limits. And my sincere apologies about that. I will post the link in the notes. The Canadian Unitarian Council is working on a water justice campaign called The Ripple Effect. And they also have some really good resources around truth, healing, and reconciliation with First Nations of Canada and the history of the forced schooling and separation of families in Canada. So I will post the links to those in the notes, and I'm sorry we couldn't get the CUC on with us today. So next, there are two resources to lift up in addition to the film screenings, which you already know about. And you may know this too, but the UUA Common Read is a book that's chosen where a resource discussion guide is published by the UUA every year. And it right now is the book An Indigenous People's History of the United States. And there's a new version, like a youth version of the book, along with the version that was published a few years ago. So this can be a multi-generational opportunity with youth groups in your congregation. There's also a recorded video discussion with the creator of the discussion guide, Gail Forsyth-Vale, which is linked in the notes, and some supplemental resources from the webinar that we had with Gail a few months back. We also did a really, really good webinar with Dina Gilio-Whitaker, the author of As Long as Grass Grows, last month for our Environmental Justice Practitioners Network series. We had, honestly, y'all, an hour and 30 minutes of nonstop amazing discussion and dialogue with Dina. So if you have a moment to check that out, please do, and please share it with others. We also had a book discussion with her a year ago. So there's two videos to discussions with Dina that you can share. And there's also a direct link to the book, As Long as Grass Grows, which is truly a really, really great resource about Indigenous history of environmental justice and the movement today. A really, really well-researched, well-written book. And also there's an invitation for any new monthly sustaining donor to UU Ministry for Earth. It could be as little as $1 or $2, but anyone who's willing to become a sustaining donor of Ministry for Earth, while supplies last, we're mailing a free copy of the book, As Long as Grass Grows. So that's another way that you can get it. So our next section, that concludes our Indigenous Frontline Solidarity issue updates and invitations. Next, we're talking about how UUs are moving to catalyze the just transition to an ecological civilization through partnership and civic engagement, which is a real mouthful. And I think sometime soon we might change the framework of our priorities here. But for now, to get us going, we'll start off with some calls to action. And first from Susan Leslie with the UUA. And I'll unmute you. There you are, Susan.
Thanks, Sally. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good to be with all of you. Great to see such a wonderful turnout, too. Before I give you an update on UU the Vote, I just want to say that the work you've all been doing really grounded the climate justice piece of UU the Vote. The climate strikes everybody turned out for in the fall. It's the largest turnout I'd ever seen of UU congregations, and really notable was that in large part it was due to youth groups asking adults in their congregations to participate with them. So really great to see people here who are doing the youth organizing as well. So the UUA has been in that mix. Allie's representing us well and holding a lot of that. We are an endorser of the Green New Deal. Thank you all who organized that conference this past fall as well. We are working with 350.org as well, and are in the big broad umbrellas for the recent virtual strikes that just went on, and looking to make part of how we mobilize for climate justice to be electoral organizing, because we all know we have got to get turnout, we've got to get people knowledgeable about how, in fact, the stakes around climate are deeply tied to this election. So like all of you, all the work we've been doing for the past few months has had to be recalibrated. We're having a big reset of UU the Vote, exactly 4 months from when we launched on January 12th. On May 12th, 7 p.m., we're having a relaunch of UU the Vote for these times called How We Thrive. Susan Frederick Gray will be there. There's going to be a virtual choir. There's going to be music, and we're also going to get into some practical things. In addition to all the work we were doing, like everybody, we've got to be part of pandemic relief. I mean, this is the crisis of our lifetimes as well. We've got a health, economic, climate, and democracy crisis at this point. So we're pacing ourselves, but really, I think, you know, the more we are intersectional about all of this, and the way you guys are really centering the Indigenous community, we can hold it all. So we're really interested in hearing who your partners are on the ground with this. You can let me know at sleslie@uua.org. I'll drop all this in. Certainly, we will be giving you opportunities on a weekly basis around how to work with the big national partners. For the climate strikes, we promoted Sunrise's training to use an app called Triple the Vote, which was asking everybody to do some relational outreach, especially to youth voters, both people that may not know that they can vote in November, as well as just helping people navigate online registration systems, and especially now during pandemic, how to vote, where to vote. And we are part of a couple of big broad coalitions, the Democracy Initiative, Faithful Democracy, and others, making sure we're doing advocacy for that there will be fair elections, accessible elections, and every person's vote will count, and that they'll be able to vote. So you'll hear more about that when you come on May 12th. I'll put it in Allie's document. I also wanted to let you know that my brother, who's a farmer, is doing some national organizing with Extinction Rebellion. And he's a UU adjacent person in Heartland, Vermont. And I sent Allie the presentation, but there's just some incredibly good news coming out of regenerative agriculture, that if we pivot to these practices, we could be down to 350 parts per million in 5 years. And a lot of this has to do with no-till agriculture. And in fact, one of the biggest emissions actually that causes our problems is water. And soil holds so much water, but we have degenerated our soil so much. But the good news is how regenerative life is. The earth, us, the animals. So I'd be really happy to share that with all of you. And, you know, they're also doing electoral organizing. I mean, everybody sees that's got to be a piece of it. So I would encourage you to sign up for the Votes weekly email so you'll know about different things that you can plug into. We're doing phone banking and texting with lots of partners. When we can get out on the ground again, we will be, and helping people get out to vote. So thanks again, everyone's doing here. It's really great to be part of this.
Thank you, Susan. I did want to lift up on the COVID response. The peoplesbailout.org is something that that we are encouraging as part of the Just Transition work to endorse the People's Bailout. There's a link, thepeoplesbailout.org, and you can contact your representatives. They make it really easy for you to sign on to that.
Thank you, Ellie. Can I just also add, Sunrise just sent out a whole way to do mutual aid as well today that I can post in the piece as well.
Thank you, Susan. Awesome. So next is a notice about a campaign with the UUs for Social Justice in DC. And I think Lavona was not able to make it on the call today, but she's leading the advocacy work there. And so I'll put, you can reach her at advocacy@uusj.org. And we had a letter writing party last Friday, as part of the Global Climate Strike, Earth Day Live programs, and the Faith Convergence that was part of that. And we plan to do another letter writing event on May 7th at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern. And this time we will literally just get together and write letters to the Senate. And this is about a bill currently in the House and the Senate around American industrial innovation. And it phases out hydrofluorocarbons, which are a super pollutant, one of the biggest causes of our global warming. And so for us to phase these out and replace them with alternatives that don't cause climate change is, if you're familiar with the Drawdown Project, it's one of the greatest resources. It's the #1 thing to address how we handle our pollutants. So David Chilton, if you want to speak, we are, I'll just acknowledge, quite behind schedule, so I don't think we'll be able to get to our discussion at the current rate. But let me go ahead and unmute you, David, if you want to speak for UUSJ.
Sure, thank you, Allie. I'm a member of the Advocacy Corps, part of UUSJ. A lot of you have participated in our Right Here, Right Now campaigns, and thank you for that. We can't do the individual meetings up on Capitol Hill these days, but we're still continuing to advocate. And as Allie mentioned, we're focusing on super pollutants this month. Hydrofluorocarbons have more than 1,000 times the power of carbon dioxide to warm our earth, and so they need to be phased out. You can go to uusj.org for details on writing in to the Senate and House on some bipartisan legislation that will phase them out. And so the more people who contact their senators and the Congress people on that, I think the better. We're also doing some action alerts to EPA on some very dangerous anti-science proposals that EPA has come up with. And you can do comments to EPA. And we've got some background for you at uusj.org. So I hope you can participate in those efforts. Thanks a lot, Allie.
Thanks so much, David. Really appreciate that. Okay, so next we have a very exciting update from Pamela Sparr about UUA engagement in the Reinvest in Our Power campaign.
Hi, everyone. It is just fantastic and so inspiring to see you have standing room only in this virtual meeting, Allie. That's so great. I'm informally supporting a bunch of UUs who are pursuing an investment strategy at the request of frontline communities. You may be aware of the Reinvest in Our Power campaign, which is led by a range of groups and coalitions representing folks of color, grassroots global justice movement generation, the New Economy Coalition, and the UUA, for example, is a part of those coalitions. A subset of that group really wants to crack open the faith community in terms of a step 2 on investment strategy. You know, for a long time, we've all been pushing to divest from fossil fuels, and many UU congregations in the UUA were leaders in that. So step 2 is, okay, if you divest, then where do you put the money? And so this is where the Reinvest in Our Power campaign comes in. It's a really exciting effort to finance locally led economic, racial, and environmentally just projects to build local, healthy, complete, sustainable communities. And there are several already subset funds going in the around the country, and then there's a national umbrella that holds funds for various work where there's not a local fund. I think it's important for us to know that there's one particular fund that's exclusively for local sustainable development among indigenous peoples that will be totally controlled, can I speak English? Controlled by indigenous folks. The Reinvest in Our Power folks have stepped up, and they asked the UUA and the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee if we would be the first faith tradition to invest in the Reinvest in Our Power campaign. And I'm just delighted to share the news that the UUA Investment Committee decided to do that at the end of February. So big shout out to the UUA. One of the things that we would love to do is to now kind of move into a campaign. There's more conversations to be had with UUSC board members, but to plan together a national request that all UU congregations that have an endowment and or individual UUs be willing also to make additional donations. So we're in the process of trying to set a target and to try and find some folks who are interested in this who would like to be part of a kind of a planning team. Initially, the hope was to roll this out for GA this year. That didn't happen, but given the circumstances, it seems like that's quite okay. Trying to really roll this out in time for celebrating something next year will be great. So if you are interested in showing how UUs can once again really show up and help lead the way nationally, please be in touch with me. I think Allie will share my email address, and let's do this. It's so exciting.
Thank you so much, Pam. Very exciting. So, okay, so next we have Doris Marlin, who is the lay leader for our Strengthen Local Climate Commitments campaign. Take it away, Doris. And if you're speaking, we can't hear you, Doris. Let me unmute you. There you are.
Okay. Now you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, I've started my timer. So I am sharing information about the Strengthen Local Climate Commitments campaign, which is in the Create Climate Justice Network. You should be able to. Okay, well, that just completely changed what I wanted to do. I have no idea what's going on with my screen. Let me try something else. Here we go. Technology.
Just close the background screen.
Muted.
No.
Doris, I think I stopped your screen share, and then if you redo it, it might work better.
Huh.
Looks good.
You can see? Okay, great. Okay, I will look at my slides and talk through them as the time rolls along. Sorry about that, everybody. So, strengthen local climate commitments. Well, what's it all about? We all live somewhere. Everywhere needs to be focused on reducing their greenhouse gas commitments and doing so in a just and equitable manner. So, who is this campaign for? For change makers who are and are not Unitarian Universalists. Essentially, anybody who lives somewhere who wants a deeper partnering commitment within their community to achieve measurable results on climate and equity. And if you have no time, if you have a lot of time, there's a role for you. How did this evolve? Well, it's been evolving long before the Paris Climate Agreement, but the Paris Climate Agreement and all the people involved really solidified a focus on action globally. And afterwards, as our administration withdrew from the Paris Climate Agreement, the heavy lifting fell on the shoulders of communities. So in some of the conversations I've had with people around the country and locally, I've heard a few things that really resonated. One is we need to be talking about climate justice the same way everyone is now talking about COVID-19. I mean, it's on everybody's mind. Nobody can ignore it. And then another great quote that came from one of our UUs in California was, COVID might kill me, but the climate crisis will kill us. So there's an emphasis on urgency. So you probably cannot see any of my slides, is that correct?
We see the intro slide right now.
Okay, so a slide right now just shows how far we need to go to reduce our climate commitments. And everybody, or many organizations, cities, companies, states have said they want to reduce, or they are committed to reduce by 26% by the year 2025. Well, we're on track to get to maybe 17, and we need to get to 50% by 2030 in order to essentially not fry and flood the global south and many other places. So how do we do that? The best opportunity is strong community engagement. So my technical problems had me lose a little bit of time, but essentially the strengthen local climate commitment goals are climate justice and equity. And I'd like to highlight an upcoming virtual workshop that will be happening at GA with Providence, Rhode Island, a community which has incorporated equity and justice objectives directly into their local climate plan. Some of the other goals are to partner, to network, to be visible, and also there's an opportunity to raise up any local elections, UU the vote, for local representatives that are strong on climate justice to help focus on their election and get them reelected, or to get those who are not strong on that out. So primarily our next collaboration meeting is every first Wednesday of the month. Our next one is at 8 p.m. Eastern on this coming Wednesday night, and I hope you will join because you can learn a lot. For example, the campaign that UUSJ is working on to reduce CFCs in the atmosphere, we have been able to learn from our Washington State friends, from Justice Washington, which Bill McPherson is a part, that they actually have a state regulation that they, I believe, have successfully passed. So even if we can't get it done nationally, we can get it done statewide, and we can get also very useful ordinances done locally, such as implementing a international green building standard, which we're doing locally in Montgomery County. So I will end there, but essentially strengthen local climate commitments is an opportunity to take what you're doing, share with others so they can get started, such as in Peoria, where they do not have a climate mayor, or have places like Seattle share with other locations what they're doing to help other locations get started. And I'm picking on Peoria because I was excited to hear that Lynnda White was from there. That's where I was born. So still have family around there. Anyway, all right, thanks everyone. And the link to RSVP, if you want to join the monthly calls, if you just want information, is in the document, the notes document, as well as if you are in Create Climate Justice, Strengthen Local Climate Commitments is a group with many, many resources already available, including a document where you can find your county in the country and see who else is participating in strengthening local climate commitments. Thanks.
Thank you, Doris. All right, so hang in there, folks. We have 13 more minutes on our call and a few more speakers. So next will be Nadine, Kadell, Sapirman, and Ann Perry, our co-leaders of the UU Action Team for Citizens Climate Lobby.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for Allie for having us here. It's so heartening to hear all the good work that UUs are doing around the country in terms of climate justice, frontline communities. I'm here to talk to you, for those of you who may or may not know, about Citizens Climate Lobby and the amazing work that UUs are doing in this space. So we have Citizens Climate Lobby is an international grassroots organization, nonprofit, that solely is focused on getting the proper price on pollution and taking those monies and returning it to citizens in the form of a dividend. In this case, it's a monthly dividend. So that's the policy that Citizens Climate Lobby promotes. And there is a bill in Congress, in the House of Representatives. It's called HR 763, the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, which is effective at reducing greenhouse gas emissions. It is incredible in terms of improving people's health and removing pollution from the atmosphere. It builds jobs, is bipartisan and revenue neutral. So those are the things that we love about the policy. And what we do in Citizens Climate Lobby, kind of like what the UUs for Social Justice does, is we build that political will. We engage citizens to contact their members of Congress to engage in the democratic process, which we as Unitarian Universalists hold so dear. There are 80 sponsors on this bill. And that's pretty amazing. I mean, there's 435 members of Congress, 80 sponsors on the bill. You might find sponsors that are in your state. I'm pretty excited to share with you that the two Unitarian Universalist members of Congress, both of them are sponsors of this bill. And I also like to point out that you can support this policy and also be supporting of the Green New Deal and the work that the Green New Deal wants to do. So there are 39, about roughly half of the members of Congress who sponsor the Energy Innovation Act are also signed on to supporting the Green New Deal. So it doesn't have to be one or the other. This is a way for you to be active in climate policy. What we love about Citizens Climate Lobby is that the things that we promote and the way that we engage with people is so much in line with our Unitarian Universalist values. We believe strongly in the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and similarly in CCL, it's all about relationship building and treating people with respect. We support the democratic process and obviously the trying to protect our planet and humanity, right? So I am a co-leader of this action team within Citizens Climate Lobby along with Ann Perry. This is a picture of us meeting with our member of Congress not too long ago. And we are a powerful force, as Susan Leslie was saying, how we were engaging UUs around the country. Well, we're certainly doing that in Citizens Climate Lobby. And one of the things I have to highlight, love to highlight, is that the Unitarian Universalist Association endorsed this bill last spring. So we have this support of the UUA. As was mentioned elsewhere, UUs show up, right? So the Unitarian Universalists and Citizens Climate Lobby are the best represented faith group. And we're on createclimatejustice.net. This is a copy of the statement that the UUA made when they endorsed the bill. And to save on time, I won't allow this to say here, but it's at energyinnovationact.org/statements, and I can put that in the chat later. So what do we do? What do we do as UUs and Citizens Climate Lobby? We educate our congregations, our boards, our ministers, our state legislative ministries about the act, and we seek their support. We work with interfaith groups around the country like Interfaith Power and Light and Green Faith so that we can do this work collaboratively with people of other faiths. And we meet with Congress, which is, as people of faith, we're taking our faith into action, into the halls of Congress, telling them that we want to see climate action in this important way that will, again, help people who are low and moderate income, reduce pollution, all those tremendous things. CCL has a weekly info session Wednesdays at 8 o'clock that anyone can join. And if you want to learn more about the bill itself, you can go to energyinnovationact.org. And there are people here on this call today who are in Citizens Climate Lobby who asked me to lift up all the tremendous work that they're doing in preaching and doing sermons in their congregations, getting the supports of their boards and their ministers. We're doing tremendous work, and we invite people to join in with the work that we do. So we are on Create Climate Justice. We have a group there, and we're also in Citizens Climate Lobby's internal group called Community. So thank you so much for allowing me to be here, and I certainly welcome questions if anyone has them.
Thank you, Nadine. All right, so next we have UUs for Just Economic Community, and there's just 2 more updates for today. Let me see, I know Sally, you're on here, so let me unmute you. And Terry, I'll unmute you as well, so you both have the floor.
Okay, I guess I'm going to talk about our workshops we were going to have at GA. The one that we know is going to be cybered is the reparations and repairs, the name of it. And the other one, and I'm sorry, I don't have the titles in my mind, but the other one is about the Pentagon and our need to pull the money out of the Pentagon because they are a major polluter and put the money in places where we wouldn't be polluting. And that one had Daniel Ellsberg, who's famous for the Pentagon Papers, and let's see, Cynthia McKinney, who was the first African-American woman from Georgia as a US rep. And they're just issues in trying to get everybody together. Daniel's 89 years old, and at at first he just wanted to do get out the vote stuff, but now it's still in conversation. We think it's going to come off either this year at cyber or next year in person. And next year will be Daniel Ellsberg's 50th anniversary of the release of his Pentagon Papers and Beacon Press and everything they did. Sally, do you have anything?
I think we are planning a web seminar for May 14th. I am not sure of the exact subject. That would be 8 p.m. Eastern, and if you're on our email list, you will get notified. Check.
Thank you both. All right, so I have a quick invitation. So UU Ministry for Earth has encouraged folks to observe World Water Day, Earth Day, and World Biodiversity Day, March 22nd, April 22nd, and May 22nd, and to see this 3-month period, which is spring for those in the Northern Hemisphere, as a time to spring for change and to engage in sacred activism for Earth justice. And so we're working on a multi-generational program for May 17th and encouraging you to observe that as a Biodiversity Sunday with your congregations. And this will be a program with myself and with Reverend Dr. Laura Kim Joyner, who some of you hopefully know. She's done a lot of amazing work with UUs and with our UU Animal Ministry and with endangered species conservation, particularly for parrots. And so this is a program that is available for religious educators to tune in as your class for Sunday, May 17th. It will be at 11 a.m. Pacific, 12 Mountain, 1 Central, 2 Eastern. And you can tune in with your RE classes. We're also especially encouraging Earth justice teams, rights of nature teams, climate action teams at congregations to tune in. And it will be a multi-generational program focused on biodiversity, on endangered species, and inviting everyone to participate in a call to arts that UU Ministry for Earth put out there. And so last year at General Assembly, this is part of this section because to move into an ecological civilization, we need culture and ritual that honors the earth in our faith. And this is one way that we're honoring our interconnections with the earth collectively and seeding new culture within UUism. So the invitation here is with your congregations, with the youth and middle schoolers and young ones at your congregation, look at what endangered and threatened species are in your local biome. Why are they endangered and threatened? And then together pick one or more, if you want to, of these species and create an artistic representation of them that then will be shared for now through picture or through video for General Assembly. And for next year, hopefully we will come together in person and have another procession of the species where we honor all of these particular species, animals and plants, maybe a fungi if you really want to mix it up, and to look at, the way that we honor with our banner parades, our congregations. May we also honor the ecosystems and the land itself where we call home. So that program on the 17th is just one way that we're building community around this. And please share it with your RE directors, share it with your climate teams, and register to join us on that day. And then lastly, UU Just Economic Community has compiled a video curriculum and a bunch of resources around the Green New Deal, including recordings from the seminar that we had last September in DC. So those are in the resources section at the bottom. And now we have just 1 minute left, so we really didn't have any time for discussion, but I would love all of any reactions you have about all of the information today that was shared and reflections you have about, if you do have time to review that statement of conscience from 2006 and really question, where were we as a faith when we wrote this 14 years ago? How have we done and where are we going? I really want to invite everyone to continue building together towards creating climate justice in this world. It's not going to happen without a tremendous amount of community mobilization together. So thank you very much. And that is a wrap for today. Thank you so much for tuning in.